Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Squadron 42's monthly report was released earlier this week, so let's break it down and check out all of Squadron's progress. As always, these videos are made possible thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members, in particular to my latest channel member, Oyin, and my latest patron, Nate the Great. Thank you guys so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. So kicking off as usual with the AI content team, they started designing possible flow extensions to allow NPCs to serve players differently if they choose to eat in or take away. For example, either giving food to the player directly or being served on a plate or tray. It is all about that immersion. Now the team fully designed and prototyped the security guard as well, with this behavior offering great gameplay opportunities in an emergent or systemic way as it fulfills scenarios of NPCs acting as law enforcers, information providers, gatekeepers and greeters. Now we did get to see a few examples of this, and for bounty hunting I know they mentioned a while ago that information providers may help us track down our targets. The team also continued developing and prototyping background life for the medical room for when players respawn, including the systemic janitor and NPCs using the bathroom cubicle and sleeping in bunk beds. And specifically for Squadron 42, the team supported the Macedo station, identifying tactile interaction opportunities and blocking out animations and usable setup. Now these usables, they say, alongside scripted AI paths, will help to create mini scenarios where the AI appear to look for hostages to dry freeze. Are they referring to slavers here? It certainly sounds like it. Anyway, on to AI features. For FPS AI features, the team further developed combat, including the ability for enemy fighters to finish off their targets, both AI or players, with execution animations by adapting the stealth takedown. For spaceships, the team adapted the fighter combat behavior to better utilize missiles, so selecting the right type of missile, the number of missiles to fire, so that NPCs don't exhaust them all on one target. And for group combat, they say that this will ensure that missiles are spread over a number of targets and are rationed for use throughout the fight, leading to interesting behaviors where fighters will soften up targets with a barrage of missiles before engaging in dogfighting. Good to see them actually using some form of tactics. Now they also worked on the pilot security behavior to fix issues that occur when the target has surrendered or been arrested. As part of the larger security behavior, work continued on the weapons training sub-behavior, where NPCs can improve their combat abilities by using the firing range. This included updating the armourer with the existing vendor and patron behaviors to support the retrieval and return of weapons. For the firing range, the team had to adapt the existing targeting and firing system to support non-agent targets, which in the future will also be used for targeting destructibles. For example, the AI might need to take out a computer bank to complete a mission objectives. Also, the groundwork for targeting specific body parts and non-human agents like animals was completed too. So there's quite a lot to take in there. I am really excited to hear that the AI will do certain activities to better their stats. So now obviously it is an MMO, but it is a skill-based MMO in the PU. But for the AI or the NPCs, it's more like a traditional MMO for them where their stats can increase the more they do something. Plus, hearing about being able to target animals and creatures and stuff like that will be excellent. But I really want this firing range just so I can start testing out the FPS weapons, so hopefully we're not waiting too long before we can get one ourselves, maybe at ArtCorp shop. Anyway, finally, the team further developed untrained weapons combat and prepared for an upcoming mocap session for the untrained cover behaviors, responding to dead bodies, hostile reactions in usables, cowering and surrender. The AI tech team completed and addressed feedback for the Tier 0 navigation link work, which involved making improvements to how the cache data is used during navigation links with motion warp animations, but also for navigation link connection points when the nav mesh changes in its proximity. Another feature worked on was planetary navigation, with the aim to generate navigation mesh on planets that can be used by NPCs and animals around outposts. Now this will use physics information, so each time planetary tiles are physicalized, navigation meshes will be generated too. And I am so excited that we will soon finally see the NPCs moving around planets And I expect we will likely either see this starting with outposts that we have now, or maybe debuting with the NPCs living at the upcoming colonialism outposts. But either way, getting it generating with the actual physicalized planetary tiles is definitely a step in the right direction, hopefully without issues. Anyway, finally for EVA, work on NPCs transitioning in from 0G into a usable and vice versa was completed. They also began developing 0G Collision Avoidance, which allows the NPC to avoid other characters and small objects while floating, using the same 3D architect that they use for ship AI collision avoidance as well. Onto the animation team, they worked on Vanduul combat, hurt locomotion, firing range behaviours, Squadron 42 specific level usables, movement between nav meshes, and medical gameplay, including healing and moving players to beds. Medical gameplay is one of the systems that I am definitely very much looking forwards to. So, the character art team progressed with research and development for the Screaming Galsons, and based on the recent torso piece tests, the modular system is looking like a promising way to create a large number of variations cost effectively, with the next step to tighten up and define rules for other armor types. The team also wrapped up the polish pass for Agent Trejo's head and passed it to the tech animation to update the rig. Her hair is currently in skinning, while her undersuit and helmet are in modelling. And finally, the team worked on some characters for Macedo and uniforms for Chapter 4G. Moving on to environment art, the team progressed with spacescaping and the approach to the Macedo station, which not only looks great, they say, but allows for interesting flight gameplay, and also the interior of the station received lighting tweaks to portray the desired mood. Planetside, progress was made on creating interesting and believable terrain that incorporates canyons, as we saw on Inside Star Citizen. Development of Archon Station's internal tram system, sewers, social hub, back alleys and workers area continued, while initial work began for exterior FPS spaces in Chapter 13. This Archon Station is huge. So huge that it even has sewers and back alleys. It is going to be incredible walking around that thing. So on to cinematics. The team are developing tools to help them work effectively regardless of what blockers appear, and these tools were further developed, which include tools to control ship functions, the player's heads, settings to suit a female character, the contents of object containers, and a dynamic per character lighting rig to give a base illumination quality. So the team also worked on specific character scenes and sequences, including a key Vanduul encounter, and one involving the player hiding amongst fog and ship parts. That sounds pretty scary. Finally, progress was made on the Bengal Carrier, including animating the bridge seats and attached screens. And what we saw, the B-roll that we saw on Inside Star Citizen this week, was phenomenal. What a beautiful ship the Bengal Carrier is. So for engine work, the physics team spent time on optimizations, including improving the mid and narrow phase of soft body collision detection. There were also several updates to sign distance fields. They further progressed with the Gen12 renderer, with lots of work and improvements, all important for next gen low level APIs, such as Vulkan and DX12. Text rendering was also refactored and optimized, and many more pipelines were enabled for Gen12 by default, including tiled shading, SSR, SSDO, shadow mask generation, and scattering queries. Significant low-level progress was made in memory management, and for the renderer, various APIs were exposed via common interfaces, so higher-level code can eventually make use of them to prepare and package data in advance and offload the renderer. On the graphics front, the hair rendering received various improvements, such as fixed shadow map generation of view-aligned strands, and a new experimental scattering model for better looking blonde hair. Now this hair stuff is sounding very impressive. Hopefully we're not going to be waiting too long before we get to see it, because they have been working on it for a long time now. Eye shading got support for a normal plus blend map when rendering specular overlays, and the eyeball texture can now also be rescaled to make shared textures better fit varying eye geometry. So the gameplay features team took the basics of the PU reputation system and created a single player version for use in Squadron 42, with the single player version running as part of the game itself, storing reputations in memory that can then be stored to the save game system. Outside of that, they made quality of life improvements and completed several smaller tasks, such as improving the video comm setup for multiple parties. The gameplay story team was focused on the second walk and talk for Chapter 5, with the team saying, "This is quite an undertaking, but it's been great to maintain momentum and see this chapter rapidly take shape." The team also set up a holographic character, created accurate holstering animations, and updated several scenes to include the new medical gun. For the graphics and visual effects programming team, they made significant improvements to several systems. Work started on a window shader to allow views into fake interiors, with support for randomized room sizes, rotations, colours and lighting, and when live, they say it will bring extra life to cities and space stations. Should be quite interesting to see. The render to texture system was modified to allow a more bespoke compositing and post-effect pipeline for the UI team, bringing greater visual consistency and higher quality effects. The level of detail merger system was updated so it can be used for New Babbage and Orison to improve performance and reduce the art burden of creating super low distant LODs. Pre-streaming support was added for various game systems such as vehicle death masks, muzzle flashes and quantum travel, which they say should solve some long-standing visual bugs. The shield effects setup was reworked to enable a single effect to be used on multiple ships of varying scales. Work on the fire hazard system continued, with focus on the heat management of the room system, and streaming support for gas clouds were also developed to reduce memory use and improve loading times. And finally, for the Gen 12 renderer, a new Vulcan extension reporting system was added so that from Alpha 3.14 onwards, so the next patch onwards, the team will be able to gather data on what hardware the drive support has for various Vulcan features. Plus, the team generalized GPU to CPU read back system and ported the DX9 era texture sampling code to a modern equivalent. In level design, they had several detailed discussions regarding non-combat AI and behaviors that are now being put into practice for the pre-combat stealth elements of the current milestone, with significant focus on combat behaviors within small spaces. The narrative team focused on an expanded environmental storytelling path for the Shuban Archon station, which included additional posters and advertising to help set the desired mood. Now the hope here, they say, is to create a dynamic living station that immerses the player wherever they look. QA continued to support AI testing the behavior implementations into Squadron 42 with a focus on Vanduul improvements. Now they also pushed to clear out any outdated issues and performed an open bug sweep to ensure their databases were up to date. And finally, the visual effects team integrated the much anticipated particle lighting system and so begun updating existing environmental effects to make use of the new settings. Now this new lighting system is much more physically accurate, which allows the artists to make their effects sit more naturally in the environment regardless of lighting conditions. Plus, it generally improves overall visual quality as well. Hopefully this will be in the next patch like 3.14, as it does sound pretty impressive. As always, the team continued their collaboration with art and design on gas clouds, and finally for visual effects, artists took a more hands-on approach to the creation of VDBs, along with the gas cloud particle effects. So there you have it, that was this month's Squadron 42 monthly report. Still loads of work going on with AI, subsumption and so on. They're really trying to tune that system and get the AI working as intended. Some very exciting things coming down the pipeline. Obviously a lot of this is quite specific to Squadron 42, but many of it will be the same for the PU. Talking of which, I will cover the Persistent Universe monthly report sometime next week, so do hit that subscribe button if you are interested in watching that. And hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, as it does the channel a big favour. If you would like to talk more about Star Citizen or just hang out and watch me play the game, you are all more than welcome over on twitch.tv/supermacbrothers. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when my videos go live and join that notification squad. Thank you again to my patrons and channel members. Cannot do this without you guys. Really appreciate that support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.